It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. You guys hang out and relax on a little wind and cloud shadows on the ground. It's nice and relaxing. Went to fly the flame wheel yesterday, and I could only get 5 out of 6 motors running on it. I worked in the field for 30 minutes or so. Had the computer with me so I can hook into the software and change any parameters I want. Really can do just as much in the field as I can here if I have the computer with me. Can really do the same thing with the Droid. But long story short, yesterday just could not get the 6 motor to fire up. Aborted mission. My mission was to check out the distance that video went with a new video transmitter and see if it increased. Also, I was going to start trying to nail down exactly how many feet my telemetry radios disconnect. Some other things that I've got a list of mission perimeters when I go out and do these things. So I brought it home. I messed with it for an hour or so last night trying to get that ESC. Well, first thing I did was I changed RC1 and RC2 outputs, just swapped them. And armed the platform, and 5 out of 6 motors spun. And it was the same motor number 1, ESC number 1, that was not turning. So I messed with it, messed with trying to reprogram these ESCs on this craft, and I finally gave up. Well, this morning I went up onto the website where I bought them, and I noticed these have a strange way of programming. These are Maytech, I forget. Tell you the name later if anybody really wants to know. Stay away from them or use them. These things are $50 a piece, and I had to buy 6. They're high fluting ones. You can get them for $10 or $15. Not like these. Anyway, as I went onto the site to look for maybe firmware updates, a little more instruction manuals, etc., I came across their throttle ESC calibration procedure, and I'm really quite shocked about it because their throttle calibration procedure is turn on the radio, put the throttle into high, plug in the battery, wait for a couple of beeps, lower the throttle, wait for a couple of beeps, unplug the battery. Now, those of us that's done a lot of this ESC programming know that normally the first time you plug in the battery with the throttle high, that merely tells the ESC that on the next cycle of battery, you go into programming mode. So normally it would be throttle high, plug in the battery, a couple of beeps, unplug the battery, plug the battery back in, a couple of beeps, lower the throttle to 0, a couple of beeps, unplug the battery. Nope. These are throttle it high, plug in the battery, throttle it low, unplug the battery, done. I will demonstrate that procedure in a video in just a minute when battery's finished charging from this morning's attempt. All 6 motors fired up. I went out to the field. It flew. I flew one of the longest missions I've ever flown in my life, and that's what you're about to see on this video. I had some problems. I'll tell you about them as they come up. I basically got the platform near me after almost losing it for a different reason, and while doing some things, not paying attention to the radio and stuff, I heard some strange noises coming from the prop, and I turned around and looked, and the platform's wobbling in the air like a bad UFO movie where they're shooting down the UFO with a ray gun and it's wobbling around, all sorts of shit. I grabbed the RC transmitter, threw it into stabilized mode. Having had several crashes, several pointing to that motor, number one, having problems, and even the last 24 hours, the very first thing I did was laid the control stick fully left, so that assuming that motor number one had failed again, I would be trying to do as much with the other two motors on that side, the other five actually. I'll be darned if it didn't work. I was almost full stick left, but I was 30 feet up or so. I was wobbling around in the air. I got it. Hard to control because it would over control. I would have to go back to the right. Long story short, I got it within 3 feet of the ground when it basically turned 90 degrees and hit a pole for holding up a guardrail or a fence or something. Broke a prop, not much else. But slipped the flight. Now, first thing I noticed, this is the first flight since running into the tree, and look at all that jello. I replaced all the props. Looks like there's some other problem causing vibration, not the props. So now I have to look at the engines. Look at the motors for vibration problem in one of the motors and perhaps replace it. Look at arm bolts. Look at every screw, nut, everything on the whole platform. So this looked great in FPV, goggles on, telemetry running. Oh boy, let's go, baby. So I took off there in loiter mode, and you can't go very fast in that mode, so I stopped and switched it into I think altitude hold mode, and started up again. It might have been stabilized mode, I forget. Which you can see sure does change the speed of the vehicle. I still had video at this point. Normally it's broke up before this point. So I decided to hang a right, go down the end of these two soccer fields, and perhaps in the upper left-hand corner to the old clock tower at the Inca campus. That's what I'm after. Look at all that jello. I'll fix it. Oops. Right here, the video broke up. And I'm not sure if the telemetry broke up here, if the telemetry broke up back at the other field. But it doesn't matter as long as I can see what's going on. No big deal. So the video was breaking up. I decided to go for these big fields up here and then try to cut back across the parking lot. Well, right about here, video went out completely. I still basically knew I was keeping my altitude, but I didn't know where I was at that instant, so I just stopped and flipped the return to launch button, and that's what you see happening now. At that point, I took off the goggles, took off the headphones that I used to listen to the telemetry. I ran out from the truck. I ran on top of the truck where I had the computer. I looked for the droid on the Google map. I could not find it. I then ran back around the truck, looked up in the sky, And about that time, the flame wheel came to home location, oriented itself back to its launch orientation, and started its landing procedure. Still didn't have video at this point. Had no idea why I didn't have video. Had my telemetry back, I'm pretty sure at this point. So as it came down from 200-ish feet or whatever it is, I put it in loiter and went about doing things to try to get the video going again and stuff. So about right here, I put it in loiter and set the transmitter down and start looking at video connections, etc. Loitering fine. I'm checking things, trying to get the video back up and continue. I'm only 6 minutes into what could be, without the extra pound on the machine, 20-minute mission here. Oops, I hear this going on. I look over and the craft's doing this number. Up, down, looking like it's going to run off. So I make a dive for the RC transmitter. I'm doing my best to control it, get it down, and there's as good a job as I did. Right there's where she hit the ground. Currently flame wheel down for a ESC replacement. So this was the data out of the APM itself for the flight. It got the whole flight, although that telemetry file is complete. The telemetry file from transmission
mode changed to
incomplete.
Stay alive. Mode changed to alt hold. Mode changed to loiter. Mode changed to alt hold. Mode changed to RDL. Heading to waypoint home. Altitude is 35. Ground speed is 1. Mode changed to alt hold. Mode changed to stay alive. Mode changed.